The shelter stood at the edge of the town where the road turned quiet, and dust settled on broken signs, and people rarely stayed long because the place carried stories that made hearts uneasy, and among all the cages there was one at the far end that almost no one visited, and inside that cage lived a dog that many called the most dangerous one in the shelter. The dog was large and strong with marks on his body that told stories of fear and survival, and his eyes were deep and watchful and calm in a way that made people uncomfortable because they could not read his thoughts, and workers spoke about him in low voices and warned visitors to stay away, and said this dog had a history that no one wanted to test. Every day people came looking for friendly dogs with happy tails and bright faces, and every day they walked past that last cage a little faster, and some did not even look because fear has a way of guiding the eyes elsewhere, and the dog remained there watching quietly, learning the pattern of disappointment and silence. One afternoon a man named Adam walked into the shelter, and he did not look like someone searching for comfort or excitement, and his clothes were old and clean, and his face carried a tired calm, as if life had already taught him many lessons, and he walked slowly through the rows of cages without smiling or frowning, and simply observed. Workers noticed him because he did not rush and did not ask questions and did not point at puppies like most people did, and when he reached the last cage he stopped and stood there without stepping back and without fear in his eyes, and the dog inside rose slowly and stared at him. The air felt heavy as if everyone around sensed something important was happening, and a worker tried to call Adam back and warned him that this dog was not safe and had been returned many times and was known for being unpredictable and strong and impossible to manage. Adam listened quietly and nodded but did not move away, and instead he knelt near the cage and rested his hands on his knees and spoke softly, not trying to command or impress, and the dog watched every movement with care and did not bark or show teeth and did not pull against the cage. The workers were confused because they expected noise or tension, but instead the dog slowly sat down and lowered his head slightly, and his breathing eased, and the sound of fear that usually followed him was gone. People watching from a distance whispered that the man was foolish and brave at the same time, and some believed this meeting would end badly, while others felt something different they could not explain. Adam asked to take the dog home, and the shelter manager tried one last time to stop him and explained the past again, and said the dog had trust issues and had frightened families and that no one knew what might happen behind closed doors. Adam simply said he understood and signed the papers with steady hands, and when the cage door opened the dog paused and looked at Adam as if waiting for permission, and then walked beside him calmly. The ride home was quiet, and the dog sat in the back seat looking out the window, and Adam drove without music and without speaking, and the silence felt natural rather than tense, as if both understood something without words. When they reached the small house at the edge of town, the dog stepped inside carefully and smelled the air and walked slowly through each room and did not knock anything over and did not panic, and Adam watched patiently, giving space. That night the dog slept near the door, and Adam slept in the next room, and neither disturbed the other, and the house remained calm and safe. Days passed, and the dog followed Adam everywhere, and learned routines and waited quietly, and listened closely, and never showed anger or fear, and neighbors were surprised to see the so-called dangerous dog walking calmly beside a quiet man. People began to wonder if the stories were wrong, and if the dog had been misunderstood all along, and yet Adam never explained anything, and continued his life as before with small walks and simple meals and silent evenings. What no one knew was that Adam had once worked in a place where fear ruled and trust was rare, and during that time he had known a dog just like this one who protected without aggression and stayed loyal through chaos and loss. The memories followed Adam, and the eyes of this dog reminded him of a promise he once made to never abandon those who were labeled dangerous simply because they had been hurt. This meeting was not an accident, and it was not bravery that brought Adam to the last cage, but recognition and understanding, and a truth shaped by shared pain and patience. The town believed the story was about a man taking home a dangerous dog, but the truth was only beginning to surface, and it would soon change how everyone saw both of them. The morning sun entered the small house slowly, and the dog woke before Adam and stayed still, listening to the quiet sounds of the place, and the soft air made him feel safe in a way he had not felt for a long time. Adam woke later and noticed the dog sitting calmly near the door, and he nodded gently and moved without sudden motion, and the dog followed him with careful steps and trust growing in silence. Outside the street was calm, and neighbors watched from their windows as Adam and the dog walked together, and people expected pulling or tension, but saw only smooth steps and steady calm, and curiosity replaced fear. The dog learned the sounds of the town and the rhythm of Adam life, and the simple routine of walking, resting, eating, and waiting, and each day passed without trouble or noise. Adam spoke little, but when he did his voice stayed soft and even, and the dog listened closely as if every word carried meaning beyond sound. At night, Adam sometimes sat quietly and looked at the dog, and memories returned from a time when he lived among harsh places and loud fear, and during those days a dog once stayed by his side and guarded him through confusion and loss. That dog was strong and silent and loyal, and protected not by anger but by presence, and when Adam lost everything, that dog was taken away, and never returned, and the wound never healed. Seeing this dog now with the same eyes and the same calm strength made Adam feel that old promise rise again, and he knew he could not walk away this time. The dog had been moved from home to home before, and each place expected quick change and obedience, and when fear showed, people stepped back and called him dangerous and returned him again. What they never saw was that fear lived inside him, not anger, and silence was his shield, not aggression. Adam gave the dog time and space and did not demand trust, and the dog responded with patience and calm, and slowly the walls inside him softened. Neighbors began to greet Adam and the dog, and children asked questions, and parents watched carefully, and the dog stayed gentle and quiet, and no harm came. Rumors started to spread that the shelter had been wrong, and that the dog was different with Adam, and people wondered why. One afternoon a shelter worker visited out of concern and watched from the gate, and saw the dog lying peacefully while Adam worked, and her fear slowly turned into disbelief. She spoke to Adam and asked what he had done differently, and Adam simply said he listened and waited and did not try to control fear with force. The worker left with many thoughts and shared what she saw, and the story began to change across the town. People who once whispered now spoke with curiosity, and the dog became a quiet symbol of misunderstood strength and patience. The dog also began to heal in ways unseen as his sleep grew deeper, and his eyes lost their guarded edge, and his steps became lighter. Adam noticed small changes each day and felt peace returning to his own life as well. One evening a storm arrived and thunder filled the sky, and the dog shook and fear returned, and Adam sat beside him and stayed close and did not move away. The dog leaned in slowly, and for the first time rested his head near Adam, and the bond became unbreakable. That moment held the truth that fear does not disappear by force but by trust and time. The town still believed this was a simple rescue story, but the real meaning ran deeper and was still unfolding. Soon something would happen that would reveal the full truth behind the dog past and Adam connection, and it would change everything. Tell me when you want. The days continued to pass quietly, and the bond between Adam and the dog grew stronger with every shared walk and every silent moment spent together inside the small house. The dog now slept closer to Adam, and no longer guarded the door with tense eyes but rested with ease, as if he finally believed this place would not disappear. Adam noticed that the dog reacted strongly to certain sounds like metal hitting metal or loud voices from far away, and during those moments the dog would freeze and lower his head as memories returned. Adam never scolded and never pulled, and instead slowed his movements and spoke softly, and waited until the fear passed, and the dog learned that panic did not lead to loss here. One afternoon while walking near the old edge of town, Adam and the dog passed a construction area, and the sound of heavy tools echoed through the air, and the dog suddenly stopped and shook. Adam knelt beside him and placed a calm hand near his side and stayed still, and the dog pressed closer and breathed slowly, and after some time the fear faded again. This moment brought back a memory Adam had tried to bury for years, from a time when he worked as a night guard in a rough place where fear ruled every corner. Back then Adam was young and alone, and the nights were long and quiet, and danger always felt close, and during that time a strong silent dog stayed with him and guarded without command. That dog had saved Adam more than once by standing firm and calm and never showing anger even when chaos surrounded them, and Adam trusted that dog with his life. One night everything changed when a loud event caused panic and confusion, and people ran and shouted, and the dog was taken away in the chaos, and Adam never saw him again. The loss stayed with Adam and shaped how he saw the world and how he treated silence and strength. Looking at the dog beside him now, Adam felt certain that this dog had walked a similar path of confusion and fear and loss, and had learned to survive by becoming quiet and watchful. The town slowly began to accept the dog as part of daily life, and shop owners waved and neighbors smiled, and fear slowly turned into respect. Children were still kept at a distance, but they watched with curiosity, and the dog never pulled or reacted and stayed close to Adam with calm steps. One evening a visitor came to Adam's house, and it was the shelter manager who had once warned him, and she asked if she could speak with him. She shared records and stories of the dog past, and explained that the dog had once lived with a man who worked night jobs and spent long hours in quiet, dangerous places. That man disappeared suddenly, and the dog was left behind confused and moved from place to place, and each return made him more withdrawn and fearful. As Adam listened, the pieces came together, and his hands trembled slightly as he realized the truth that felt impossible but undeniable. The timelines matched, and the behavior matched, and the eyes matched, and Adam understood that this dog was the same one he had lost years ago. The manager noticed Adam's reaction and asked gently, and Adam told her the story of the nights and the loyalty and the sudden loss, and silence filled the room. The dog lay nearby listening, and when Adam's voice softened, the dog lifted his head and moved closer and rested beside him. The truth was clear now, and it explained everything that no one else could see, and the label of dangerous was nothing more than pain misunderstood. The manager left with tears and promised to share this story so others might learn before judging again. That night, Adam sat quietly with the dog and felt peace settle deep inside, and the dog slept without fear for the first time in many years. But the town was about to learn this truth as well, and the final reaction would surprise everyone. The morning arrived gently, and the house felt lighter as if the walls themselves had learned to breathe, and Adam woke to find the dog resting peacefully near him without tension or alertness. The truth that had finally surfaced settled deep inside Adam and gave meaning to every silent moment they had shared since the shelter, and the bond no longer felt new but restored. When Adam stepped outside with the dog that day, the town felt different, and people noticed the calm connection and the quiet understanding between them. The shelter manager kept her promise and shared the real story with the workers, and slowly the words reached the town and changed the way people spoke about the dog. Whispers turned into reflection, and fear turned into shame as people realized how quickly they had judged what they did not understand. Neighbors who once crossed the street now stood still and watched with softened eyes, and some even nodded with respect. Children asked careful questions, and parents listened closely and learned that silence does not always mean danger, and strength does not always mean threat. Adam continued his simple routine, and never sought attention, and never explained unless asked, and even then his words were few and gentle. The dog walked beside him with confidence and calm, and no longer flinched at passing sounds, and no longer carried the weight of uncertainty. One afternoon the town organized a small gathering near the open field and invited Adam and the dog as a sign of acceptance and healing. Adam hesitated but chose to attend, knowing that healing often begins with presence rather than words. The dog stayed close and calm, and people gave space and watched, and slowly smiles replaced fear. The shelter workers spoke openly about how labels had failed this dog and how patience and understanding had saved him. The moment was quiet and powerful, and many learned something they had never considered before. Adam stood beside the dog and placed a gentle hand near his side, and felt the steady rhythm of trust and peace. The dog looked up once, and then forward again, as if knowing he finally belonged. As the sun lowered, the gathering ended, and people returned home carrying new thoughts and softer hearts. That evening Adam and the dog returned to their house, and the silence felt warm rather than empty. Adam prepared a simple meal, and the dog rested nearby, and both shared the comfort of routine and safety. The past no longer haunted them because it had finally been understood. The town would remember this story not as one of danger but of patience and truth and reunion. The shelter would change its ways and listen more closely and judge less quickly. And Adam would continue his quiet life knowing that the promise he once made had finally been fulfilled.